That's a great question, actually. One of the things that drew me to Landman is how Taylor writes really powerful, dynamic women, and he makes them very multidimensional. So when you look at Angela, she is this like high-flying, super sexy wildcat who loves to have a good time, but then you also see her in the darkness of the night when she's raw and vulnerable, and when you see her crumble. So I think that being able to see all sides of her really gives her a different kind of presence than you usually see on television.
And what are some of the moral grey areas of Big Oil that are explored in this series?
You know, I don't know if they're morally gray. I would say that Taylor has a point of view, and that's the real point of view of the way he sees it. Agree or disagree, at least that's what it is, and I think that's what's important when you're making a show or you're making a movie. It has to be the person who's creating its true vision, and with Taylor, it's very rare to have someone write and direct and have it be a singular one. So I think that you really see his vision in his world, but then you also have Christian Wallace, who brings the authenticity to this show. So, you know, Christian did Boomtown, he did the podcast Boomtown, and his family grew up in the Permian Basin, in Midland, Odessa, and so he had all these men and had the real guys in these situations. So it's like there's so much was fact-checked, and I really think it brings a different level to our show.
Touching on the podcast, are there any anecdotes directly from it that the series takes direct inspiration from?
Yeah, the Patch Cafe is definitely part of it. That's a big part of it because a lot goes down there, and I always thought it was fascinating. It's like, what do you want? You know, lunch or dinner? You know, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you're a landman or you work on the oil rig. Sometimes they work till 8 in the morning, and then it's dinner for them.
And tell us about working with Demi. What's that been like?
Well, she's just an icon, and she's I mean, here's the deal. All the actors on the show are incredibly generous, and the fact that I got to have a seat at the table with them is such an honor. And they're just, I mean, I'm just listening, you know? I take it in, and to be able to work with Billy is extraordinary because he's such an unbelievable actor, and so he just doesn't, there's not a false note. So when you can get into bad habits or work on shows where things are rushed, then you have Billy who really brings it back to the work and to the art of what we're doing, which is to tell a beautiful story.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there any real-life businessmen who have inspired your character?
Well, interestingly enough, we got a cameo in the show from Jerry Jones, who is a fascinating guy who I've met on several occasions, but I got to do a scene with in this show, and Jerry got his start as an oil man, and he now owns the Dallas Cowboys and is a very successful guy, and part of why we had him in the show is that he's kind of a living example of maybe pump the brakes sometimes and remember that family is important as well, and your own health and safety is important as well. So it was cool that we got him in the show as a real life example, to your point.
And what feelings do you think this series will evoke in audiences? It's very powerful. Where do you think?
Well, I think like a lot of Taylor's stuff, you know, I've mentioned it a couple times already, but family is a big part of this. But he somehow manages to find these high stakes, high intensity landscapes that really are perfect backdrops for telling these stories. And I think that is the remarkable thing that he's done, whether it's in Yellowstone or in the past in Yellowstone with 1883 and 1923, or even in Lioness, you know, the high stakes environments and the wonderful writing, but also just these characters that get to bounce off each other. Talk about Billy Bob and Demi and Allie. I mean, it's just a tremendous opportunity, and I think it's a compelling story.
And did you know much about Big Oil before the series?
I knew a fair share, but I certainly hadn't done the deep dive. That really the podcast was the thing. It's called Boomtown, and that really gives you a real sense of the landscape and the environment we're talking about. And then we flesh it out in 3 dimensions.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.